Hi guys, Jenny with On Fire Fit, and we are here for some more conversation about health with Pastor Jim.
Hey, how y'all doing today?
We are talking about carbohydrates today, and there is a lot that can be said, and I'm going to try to give it kind of a quick overview. We could go really deep on this, but it is a great topic because carbs are a part of our lives one way or the other.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and we have talked a bit about a sugar detox recently. We've led some people through kind of a sugar detox, a sugar focus, which I think is a really great way to start off with making a big impact on your health. And the reason is that a lot of the foods that we eat, if we don't really pay attention or we're not really being aware of the effects, we can put our bodies into crisis, inflammation, which manifests itself in so many ways. You have heart disease, diabetes, cholesterol, all kinds of joint and muscle, and all of the different kinds of things that people experience when their bodies are in a state of inflammation. And when we focused on that sugar as the kind of a very quick way to assess how much am I even getting of sugar, whether it's very overt or it's very subtle, small amounts within different products and ingredients and things that you eat. And after we get through that sugar detox, the question has always come up, what's next? And so the what's next to me is that we look at our carbs. So consider your carbs and thinking about what carbs should we be eating or should we be focusing on? And so I am going to talk a little bit about that. Pastor Jim, do you have anything before I start diving deep into that thing?
Well, as we learned with the sugar detox, you really have to look at your labels. You really have to understand what's in the food that you're eating, um, because carbs, like sugar, seem to have an addiction quality to them. Um, you know, uh, I got over sugar addiction a while ago. But that carb thing still kind of haunts me a little bit. I know that white bread, is a terrible carb. It's something that we should not be consuming. But man, when I'm sitting down to a bowl of my um, chickpea pasta, with a no sugar, all natural spaghetti sauce, a nice piece of Italian bread would be absolutely perfect, and it would make that meal, you know, perfect. But that processed wheat, that bleached flour, that, all of that stuff is terrible for our health and for um, trying to keep that carb balance where it should be. So, there is that addicting quality. And I thought of something as we were talking about doing this recording today. We have programming from the world that says, sugar is good, and it's everywhere in advertising. It's the same thing with carbs. You get all the messaging about, French fries, and all the different breads, and donuts and all that stuff. um, we need to have a metanoia, a change of our thought patterns and the way that we see things and perceive those messages that are coming at us. You have to think of it almost like an alcoholic or a drug addict, right? They have to have a a total change of their personality, a total change of the way they perceive their world. If we want to move from the programming that's got us into these bad habits of our life, we have to have that same kind of a thought change. We need to stop speaking death to ourselves. We need to stop coming into agreement with the lies that are being forced at us and stand up and say, no, I'm not going to eat that white bread. I'm not going to have, that big bowl of, white flour pasta. I'm not going to eat that because it's not good for me. You know, Instead of saying, well, just this one time, just this, because that's how we trick ourselves. It's the same thing with an alcoholic. Well, just this one drink, right? It's just going to be this one drink. I'm only going to have one, and 3 days later, they're, in the ditch somewhere. So as we go through this, we really need to learn to retrain our brain and our thought patterns to see what the food that we're feeding ourselves is really all about, and why we're eating the things and why we're craving the things that we're craving. Um, yeah, that's just my little spiel on overcoming the programming and the self-talk that we do that gives ourselves permission to step on the landmine.
Mm. That is the probably the most important part is to change the way you think about this stuff. And I would say some of it has to do with knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
but knowledge is oftentimes not enough. So you do really have to start to change what you say to yourself, to recognize that programming, to kind of just see it for what it really is and why there is such a battle sometimes for our mind and how it affects our bodies and the whole process. I'm going to talk a little bit about the knowledge aspect of it. And I think that part does help us to start to change the way that we think. But it's probably not enough. You do have to get your mind involved in this process. And I kind of bring this into almost everything, but I think you have to be very aware that the way that your perspective, the way that you view all of this is going to be the most important aspect of it. Because you can just say, oh, poor me, woe is me. I don't get to eat the white bread. Why does everybody else get to eat the white bread or whatever? Or you can say, praise God, I can eat sweet potatoes and fruit and lentils and the other carbs that I'm going to mention in a few minutes. There's so many wonderful foods that God gave for my body to make me feel good. Thank God for that.
Yeah.
And so I think it really, you have to shift your perspective, because if you feel very deprived and you feel very kind of left out, then it's the knowledge I give you is not going to be enough to make a change, right? So I think we have to couple the two things together. So thank God for all the good things that you can have, and also for the knowledge of why these things are important to understand and then to actually apply as well. And so the question is, why are carbs such a kind of a hot topic? We have our kind of big major food groups that most people think about, carbohydrates and protein and healthy fats. You have your vegetables. And when we look at carbohydrate, there's a lot of times confusion. I would say that because there is so much coming at us in the form of information, that sometimes people feel like there's so many things that are being said that are sort of conflicting that they don't know what to do. And so that people just kind of end up doing whatever feels good because
Mm.
it's a lot of confusion. But I do think that we can kind of simplify this and make it a lot more just kind of back to the garden concept again.
Yes.
Okay, what we've talked about a bunch of times. So with carbohydrates, carbohydrates break down in your body into little molecules of glucose, which can be used for energy. But if you have too much of them, or they're coming in too fast, too much too fast, your body will store them. So if they can't be used now, then they have to go into storage. Okay, how does that happen? Well, food enters the body. Pancreas says, oh, food is coming. Here comes the insulin. So now I'm going to start pushing out insulin in proportion to the glucose, those little particles that are breaking down with the food. Okay, so if you have carbohydrate breaking down very fast, let's just talk about like a cookie or something like that. A lot of carbohydrate, no fiber, which slows things down. Sugar as well, sugar is a carb. Breaking down fast, insulin has to go boing, way up because you got a lot coming at once. And if you're not going to use it all right away, which very few people are eating a cookie and then running a marathon, right? So a bunch of that stuff is going pushed into the fat cells. And when you look at the breakdown process, one of the things that is the best thing you can do with carbohydrate is to add fiber with the carbohydrate, because what the fiber does is it slows the bus down. Okay, so it starts to break down at a slower rate. The insulin doesn't have to go spiking up. It's going to be more gradual and it's not going to go as high. And what goes up must come down. So if your insulin is going way up and causing that glucose to try to be dealt with very quickly, you're going to have a big drop in your blood sugar too. And so there comes the addiction. So you start to feel kind of good with all of that fast carb coming at you. And then the insulin is trying to bring it down, and it will go past baseline, what you're, supposed to be at that makes you feel good. It's going to go drop below that. And then you're going to need more again to bring it back up. And so you go through a period of up and down, which makes your body feel a little bit like in a crisis. And without getting into all the details, there's a bunch of, hormones and processes that go on to try to help balance that, but it puts your body in crisis. So when you eat those fast, what I call fast carbs, those are the carbs that are highly processed and they don't have fiber and they're not the way God made them. They're, cookies and chips and white rice and white pasta and white bread and, the things that you kind of think about. Those type of carbs are going to be the type that cause that insulin to shoot up and then drop your sugar down way too low. And then you want more and more, and you're never really satisfied because you're doing that up and down so much, right? When you eat carbohydrate that is the way God made it, didn't have to go through a factory. Also, it has fiber involved in it. The level of your blood sugar is going to gradually go up. The insulin is going to be there to try to help bring it back into normal, but it doesn't have to go up and down, up and down. So you feel satisfied for longer, and your body doesn't have to go into a crisis because it's not going up and down below baseline all the time. So those carbohydrates that are higher in fiber are going to be kind of natural sounding, right? Beans and lentils are going to be great carbs plus protein. You have root vegetables, which are great for sources of fiber and carbohydrate. That's things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, yams, jicama, carrots, things of that nature. Those are really healthy carbs. If you peel the skin off of it and take a ton of potatoes and mash them all down into mashed potatoes, you've kind of lost a lot of the fibers, so not quite as good, but probably better than, another source of carbohydrate that doesn't have a natural source in the first place. But the idea is that you're trying to include food, carbohydrate food that is higher in fiber. So that's going to be those root vegetables, fruit. Some fruit is going to cause a faster breakdown in sugar than others. So the lower kind of the high fiber but low impact on your blood sugar are going to be things like your berries. Green apples are better even than red apples, but apples are really good. Some melons and fruits like peaches and nectarines and stuff. If you have small amounts, the things that tend to be a little bit too much carb and sugar are going to be things like pineapple, mango, grapes, watermelon. Not to say you can't have them, you just don't want to just sit down and just plow through, tons of that all at once. But still, I would say that is still going to be better and easier for your body to manage than the carbohydrates that I mentioned earlier that don't have any fiber involved. And that's why it's really important too, if you're having things like fruit, that you don't make it into a juice where you pull out all the fiber and now all you have is the sugar, orange juice or really any juice, apple juice, whatever. You've taken all the fiber away and now you're just giving yourself a load of quote unquote sugar slash carbs, which causes that spike in your blood sugar again. So you want to try to keep, I kind of always will talk about this little normal, happy line that your body feels kind of normal. Your glucose, meaning your blood sugar in your body, is kind of in a normal range. And you don't want to be going up and down and up and down and up and down all day. You want it to kind of try to stay as close to that happy line as possible. And I mean, it kind of goes back a lot of what Pastor Jim was talking about earlier. I think it's so interesting because we hear in media a lot about like dopamine detoxes and dopamine trying to get that. We are so overwhelmed with sources of things that make us zing and zang and up and down, all the social media and news and all of that kind of stuff. I feel like we're very little of our time is spent in that little happy zone where we're in peace and stability. So it kind of like it's very pervasive in our culture to live in this kind of up and down and very unsettled, peaceless type of an existence. And it doesn't have to be that way. We can make choices that bring us into that range where God intended. And so I think that's kind of a summary. Pastor Jim, what do you have to say about all that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly, what we're talking about in this, back to the garden, right? We need to get back to the whole foods. We need to get stop with, the super processed, even the mashed potatoes and, we talk about, cold baked potatoes are just so good and they're good for you. That Jenny can explain why cold baked potatoes are better than hot baked potatoes, but I won't get into the science there. She knows that I don't. But with the fruits and our vegetables and the salads, leave the croutons out, leave out all the processed stuff. There's tons of nuts and seeds and we use a lot of hemp seeds and black cumin and flax seeds and I mean there's just tons of things that you can add in that's going to boost that fiber up and and help with that digestion to offset, any carbs that you have in there that are, if you have too much carb in your salad or whatever you're eating. um, there's so many different ways. We just have to retrain our brains. We're too used to this fast food, this big thing, this big trend in the cooking world is this, 15-minute meals, 30-minute meals. That's great if, you are using all this processed stuff, or you can just open a jar and dump it in a, but if you have to take raw fruits and vegetables and, good quality meats, that are, don't have hormones and all that stuff in them. If you have to process all that stuff and then cook your meal, you're probably not going to get done in 15 minutes, unless you've done all that pre-processing ahead of time. These people on TV that, do these 15-minute meals, they don't show you the 25 sous chefs they have behind them that are doing all the real work. They're just putting this stuff together in front of your face. But anyway, we just have to overcome that mindset and really think about how were we designed to eat. you know um, God did not make ice cream, right? He didn't do that on the third day or the fourth day, let there be ice cream. um, we invented that, we created that, and yes, ice cream is good, ice cream is very good. And I'm not saying you can never have ice cream, but you can't eat it every day. You can't eat it, it doesn't need to be after dinner every night. You sit down with a quart of ice cream. But off on your birthday, you want a little scoop of ice cream. Yeah, that's probably okay. We just have to keep everything in check and in moderation and understand the things that we put into our body can either benefit us or they can harm us, and we have to be grown up enough, adult enough. I'll use that phrase, that might make some of you mad, but, we have to be grown up and adult enough to realize that, we have choices, and we have to make good choices if we want good results. You can't plant potatoes and expect corn. If you're feeding your body with junky, foods, you're going to have a junky body and your health is going to be junky. um, if you feed your body right, if you get the right amount of exercise, if you get the right amount of sunlight, if you do things, in moderation, if you're getting, outside and experiencing nature and fresh air, and, your body's going to respond. Your health is going to return back to, like Jenny says, that baseline, that normal place that we are created and designed to be. Um, anyway, that's my little
Yes.
spiel on how to, we need to have a more adult approach to the things that we eat. We can't be running to McDonald's and, going after the latest donut of the day. um, we need to have some responsibility in our life.
That was the word I was just about to say is responsibility and understanding, that our choices do make or break us. We have the choice, and people tell me all the time, well, I didn't have a choice, and I'm like, I almost any fast food restaurant, I would go with you, and I promise you I can make a better choice than what you're telling me right
Yes.
alongside of you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we do all have a choice. You're just making an excuse. I went on a rant about that one day. But It's because we make a lot of excuses for ourselves, and that allows us to do what we want to do, like a little spoiled toddler. And instead of taking responsibility and saying, I know better, now I'm going to do better.
Mhm.
And, you know, I think that kind of tying back into why it's important how you choose your carbohydrates. I don't remember if we talked about this in just in our group meeting that we've been hosting, or if I've made a video about it, but a lot of the food that is highly processed, the fast carbs, the junky, non-fibrous carbs that I mentioned, a lot of, and I mean, I'm not going to go off on these tangents about the oils and the type of protein and all of that right now, but because our focus is supposed to be on the carbs right now. But why do we care so much about fiber? Well, I mentioned about how it affects your blood sugar, right? So what there's two aspects to that that are really important. So when your insulin is really high, because you've been eating a lot of carbohydrate that breaks down fast, and the insulin has to go up because that's its job, is to handle that. And if you're not using it up, it's going into your fat cells. So if that insulin is up, it's basically blocking those cells that are holding on to all that fat from opening up. They can't open up and let the fat out. So as long as your insulin is high, you are going to have a very hard time losing weight. And that's why, a lot of these keto diets are very effective, because the insulin level is not having to go way up because you're not eating a bunch of carbohydrate. Therefore, the cells are opening up. I still think that the most balanced way is to eat the healthy carbs, not just eliminate carbs,
Yes.
but to eat the healthy carbs that have the fiber. And here's why I'm going to say this part. So when most of us are familiar and aware of this whole gut brain health and all of that aspect of things, because it's out there a lot in media and news and things. But the gut is intended to be, as one doctor talks about, your sewage system. It's taking all this stuff out of your body. When you eat a bunch of, especially things like the fast carbs and things like that, you cause the wall of the intestines to become more permeable, meaning it's kind of opening up little holes, and that's what this whole leaky gut terminology is about. When you open that up, your sewage system is leaking out into the rest of the population, the rest of your body, and that causes a lot of inflammation. It's stuff is going where it's not supposed to go, right? And it's not probably quite as dramatic in your mind the way that I'm explaining it, but it is all these little inflammatory things that are leaking out,
Yeah.
causing your body to have to respond and do something about it. And
Mm.
that's why people have the achy joints, and they have their like diabetes and cholesterol and heart disease, like tons of things happen because of that. So when you eat fiber, which fiber oftentimes comes with carbohydrates. So if you're eating fiber, you are feeding the little bacteria that are in your gut that are starting to make those holes get blocked up, healed, and the lining of the intestine, the gut, and everything is starting to heal. But if you don't feed the little good guys that are in there trying to help heal it, you're just going to continue with these
Yeah.
open, holes in your whole process as things are trying to move out. So every time you're eating those carbohydrates that have fiber, and that's going to be a lot of things like the berries, the legumes, the nuts and seeds, or those aren't really carbohydrates so much, but they do have fiber and they have
Yes.
protein and healthy fat. But as you're eating those things that are higher in fiber, you're healing that gut, and therefore you don't have all the inflammation
Yes.
to combat.
Mm.
And that also is helping your mind to think clearer. Like we're back to
Yeah.
this whole, like, how do we get our mind on board with this whole thing? We got to heal it also via the gut.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It all starts with your gut. It starts and it stops there.
Yep.
Yeah. I've learned recently, been watching a lot of studies, and, uh, you know, probiotics have been this big thing for the last, 5 or 6 years, maybe even longer. If you're eating, fast carbs, if you're eating, those unhealthy carbs, and you're not feeding your gut with fiber, you're just throwing money down the drain by buying those probiotics, because they're doing nothing, you know. Um, they're not helping you a bit. You have to have the prebiotics, the fiber and the stuff to feed that probiotic that those microbes that you're putting into your system have to be fed. And if you're, throwing all the junky sugar and the fast carbs in there, you're feeding the bad bacteria, not the good bacteria. And the bad bacteria will wipe out the good bacteria faster than you can take the pill.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, if you're going to do this, you have to be all in. You can't halfway step into this, because it's just not going to. You're not going to get the result that you're looking for.
Right. And we did talk about vitamin D in our group, but I think that is a good follow-up to the thing of probiotics because most people are aware how most of us are deficient in vitamin D. And the thing that most people don't know is that you could be taking all the international units of vitamin D that are recommended, and they're doing Zippo inside of your body. And what they've looked at is the a lot of disease processes could be helped by a proper vitamin D level.
Yes.
So because of that, people have started to take vitamin D, but it's not changing anything. And why is that? Well, the reason is your body, when you take that vitamin D, it is not in an active form when you take it. It has to get converted inside your body and the liver and everything. It has to go through a process of conversion. But if your body is in a lot of inflammation because of all that food that we've just been talking about, and the gut is permeable and you're not doing anything to fix that problem, you are basically taking that vitamin D and it's being deactivated.
Yep.
Or not even being allowed to be activated is more a proper way to say it. It was never active when it went in you, and now it doesn't even have the chance to get activated because you're so inflamed all throughout your body. So it's the same thing with the probiotics that Pastor Jim was just talking about. If you're only halfway doing this, like I'm going to eat fast food and I'm going to eat all this processed and fast carbs and all that, and I'm going to take a probiotics and some vitamin D, you're wasting your money. It's not going to help. So we got to get the gut healed. We have to let the pancreas do its job the right way. We have to let the fat cells open up and get rid of that extra storage of fat and all this extra that we've been holding on to.
Yep.
Let's let the body do what it was meant to do. And that's how God created us, to be able to heal from within. But it's not going to if we're sort of just dropping a little, drop in the bucket and the bucket is just full of sewage. It's like we gotta kind of go all in here.
Yeah. And if you go all in, you will see results, and you will feel results, and it will happen quickly. I mean, within a matter of weeks and into months. Um, the keto diet, the Atkins diet, they all report these tremendous results very fast. The problem is the word diet, because our mind hears diet and it thinks deprave, you're depraving yourself. You're denying yourself this portion of, things that were good to you in the past, or tasted good to you in the past. We've got to throw out that word diet. We're not talking about a diet. We're talking about a lifestyle change and a mentality, a metanoia, the changing of our thought patterns and how we perceive what we are to feed our bodies. Um, and it's not something that you're going to do for 8 weeks. It's something you're going to do for the rest of your life. Um, and there are so many alternatives and options. Yes, you can't have the white bread anymore, that nice soft, wonder bread that makes such great peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. You can't have the jelly anymore either. But there's so many great alternatives. There's high fiber, whole wheat bread, and there's breads that have no flour in them at all, that are just all fiber. Great alternatives that are out there, that you just have to do the research. You have to find them. If you want, Jenny and I both know a lot of those products, and we use those things, and we can tell you the benefits of using them. Um, yeah, you just have to be able to look around. Stay out of the middle aisles of the grocery store. Do all of your shopping on the outer aisles, the produce section, the fruits and vegetables, you know, stop buying the processed, packaged meats. Get the good quality. Eat less of it. So you're going to eat less of it because you're going to get more of your protein from other things. So you're not going to need to eat as much of the meat protein. So you can buy a little higher quality grade of meat. If you're not eating as much. They're just little things that you need to do, so that you can get a just a significant change in your health. I started this journey, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, because I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Um, I'm not sick and tired anymore. My inflammation has gone away. Over the course of time, I've lost about 100 pounds. Um, I'm kind of plateaued right now, but my wife has lost a bunch of weight here recently, just in the sugar detox. I think she's probably lost 15, 18 pounds now. So and her inflammation is down. She was pre-diabetic, and now her A1C numbers are virtually perfect, and everything is really turned around for her. Can't wait till she goes back to the doctor next time, and uh, he gets to see another 3 or 4 months of good benefit, and weight loss and everything else, and so that maybe she can stop that nonsense and go go about just living a normal life. Anyway, yeah, this you will see dramatic results pretty quickly. um, and but you have to be all in. You have to get your exercise. You have to be hydrated. You need to drink a lot of water. There's just so many things that we know that we should do, that we choose a juvenile mindset, and we overlook, or we just push it away, because we want the fast food. We want the thing that satisfies the dopamine hit, instead of, I like being able to sleep all night. I like the fact that I don't have any kind of sleep apnea, and I'm not snoring all night and waking up with, sore tonsils every morning, and you know, it's nice. It's really nice.
Yeah. And I think that some of the things you were talking about, it kind of brought me back to, my kind of carb addiction slash sugar addiction that I had at one point with frozen yogurt. And, you sort of justify it because, well, it's yogurt, even though, it's like really mostly sugar and carbs and everything. But, and I haven't had a weight problem or things like that. So there's a lot of justifying that any of us might do. But one of the things that broke me out of that was being very conscient, or not conscientious, conscious while I was eating it. So there were a lot of times that I would get the yogurt and I would be, in front of the TV with my husband, or I'd be driving somewhere eating it on my way to my next thing that I had to do or whatever. If I really just sat there and tasted it, it's true what they say. Like after a few bites, it really doesn't taste that great. And I noticed, I was like, wow, it's even giving me a weird aftertaste. After a few bites, I was like, this isn't even really that good.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of our carbohydrate, fast food, sugar, and all of that is just because we're so mindless
Mhm.
with when we're eating it, and how much are we focusing on how it's making us feel.
Yeah.
I think that that's a great way to get that change in the way that you think. The metanoia that Pastor Jim was talking about is be very aware,
Mhm.
just start with being very mindful. Don't eat while you're distracted, and pay attention to how you feel. Pay attention to how you feel afterward.
Yeah.
And, those things can start to kind of change the way you think. And now, in yogurt, I drive past them all the time, never think twice about it. I used to not be able to drive past one of those places.
Yeah.
So I relate to people that have a fast food addiction because I did that with frozen yogurt, but I don't think that way anymore. So therefore, it isn't a constant struggle. And I think people worry about that they're going to have this constant struggle the rest of their life in feeling this deprived and cravings and all. And that's not true. That's a lot of lies that the enemy just loves to plant in our mind to keep us stuck for yet another day.
Yeah.
So I don't want to make this video way too long. We've already probably gone on long, but it is a combination of mindset, understanding how our bodies react, understanding the process, and then just starting to implement it. And I would say step one, be mindful, pay attention, see what am I eating? Try not to eat in front of the TV or whatever, and pay attention to how you feel, and
Yeah.
then see how you can kind of start to change.
Yeah. So when you're looking at your label of whatever you're going to eat, you have a carbohydrate line that tells you the total grams of carbohydrates. You have a fiber line that tells you, total grams of fiber. And you have a protein line that tells you what the total grams of protein are. You can take those carbohydrates, subtract the fiber, subtract the protein, and that gives you the net carb load of what you're going to eat. So the higher the fiber, the less, that carb is going to have an impact on you. Higher the protein, the less the carb is going to have an impact on you. It's just those kind of little tricks that you really have to look at when you're making those decisions, being conscious of what you're about to eat, and that information will, once you get to that place where the inflammation's going away in your body and you're starting to have more energy and you're starting to feel better, you're going to look at those labels a lot closer, because you're going to like feeling like a teenager again, not having all the aches and pains and all of that. So that's just a little tip that if you didn't know, most people do know that these days, though.
Yep. So that is, I mean, there's a lot more we could talk about. Maybe we'll make a follow up at some point, but that's kind of a little bit of how to start considering your carbs and maybe some ways to try to start changing the way you think about them. Hopefully that will help you guys. And so, yeah, thank you for being with us. Thank you, Pastor Jim, for helping me and all of your wonderful practical things that you always help us with.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm not a doctor, so don't look at me for any of that advice. But yeah, I'm here to just to help encourage you and move you forward because of the journey that I've been on. So thank you all.
That's what we need. That's what we love. We need testimony, and it helps us all to have hope and to realize that there are
Yep.
options and choices we get to make. So I totally think that's a wonderful aspect of doing things like this together. So thanks for being with us. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. We'll see you in the next video.